So Don, thank you so much. With that as a backdrop, I can't wait to dive into this, Zach and I both, and we appreciate you coming.
All right, Chris, thank you.
Yeah, welcome, Don. I'm excited.
Yeah,
thank you.
So in looking at so much of your cool material, Don, and speaking with our mutual friend, Steven, I know a kind of a core base is the 16 characteristics of greatness. And I thought what a neat way to wrap up a 5-part series about thriving in chaos by asking about how great teams become great, but how they thrive during this time in particular.
Absolutely. Glad to do it. And, there are a couple different elements there, but we can jump in anywhere you want to go.
Well, let's start with how great teams maintain greatness, and then we can pivot into this lovely time period.
Super. Yeah. So the conversation about high performing teams for me began a number of years ago. I had been out after I retired from Sports Illustrated. Had been out speaking at different companies around the country about individual high performance and what you would expect to see from the best of the best. I mean, how they answer the question about what habit they worked to develop that allowed them to separate themselves. And one of the executives at one of the companies said, we love individual high performance, that's great, but why are some teams capable of being better than others? And it's such a wonderful idea to dig into. I started building a list, traveling, and for 5 years, every time I was on the road, if there was, and I had an extra day or two available, and there was a team I thought met the criteria I had set up for a great team, I would try to go spend some time with them if they'd let me, and just ask for permission. What can you teach? What can I learn? And it ended up being this amazing journey. 110 teams in the world of sports, 24 in business, and led to a book. But one of the elements was that one of the elements about the best teams is that they thrive, to your point, right? They thrive in moments when others are busy in scramble zone. And part of that, you can't really you can't really give your audience today and give them and encourage it, because it's about preparation, right? I mean, it's about knowing that everything in life happens in seasons. It's a great, I'm a sports guy, so we do a lot of sporting analogies in everything we do, but and that there are seasons that are going to include chaos. And so, how are you, and you can't predict chaos, right? I mean, that's the idea of chaos. If you could predict it, it certainly wouldn't require that. So the first little piece is about prediction, right? Or about a willingness to prepare, excuse me. But the second, which doesn't do your audience any good right now. But the second is about mindset, right? And that's an understanding that a few things last forever. Tom Brady in New England doesn't last forever, right? Sorry, I just had to do that. And so if that's the case, how would you react if there were a certain level of challenge, if there were certain things that suddenly come your way? And so a lot of organizations that are the best, are working mindset related discussions before, during, and after moments of chaos. And what mindset leads to in this particular situation where we are right now, it's an understanding that you cannot wish for, talk about, um, beg yourself for, and man, I wish it was like it used to be. You can't spend time in conversation asking yourself, when is this going to end? The sheer definition of chaos is you don't know, right? If you,
Yeah.
the example I've used a few times recently is, I don't know about you, but I fly a lot, and when I fly, if I get to the gate and it says my flight has been delayed, that frustrates the crap out of me, right? If I get there and it says my flight has been canceled, that's actually preferable to me than my flight has been delayed, because canceled, I can go figure out what I'm gonna do next. Delayed, I don't know what to do next. And we're not built as humans to operate well in a vacuum. So if you want to begin this process, or you're trying to work about how do we thrive in chaos, one of the first things we have to do is realize that if we don't know when it's going to end, we have to treat the moment right now as if it's going to go forever. And that's a miserable place, because if we're busy trying to predict that which we can't predict when it's going to end, we may not be activating on things we should be activating on right now. So one key element of great teams who do well in moments of chaos is that when they click into activity mode, it's not with a, hey, this is going to be a 1 week patch or a 10. They click as if what's changed will change forever, which allows them mentally to look at a delayed flight as if it's canceled, right? And in that situation, your mind activates around what to do next, as opposed to, boy, this is miserable. I wish we could do this. I wonder how long we're going to have to sit here waiting. And so the best teams are in this mindset of they look at moments of chaos as permanent, even if they might not be, because that allows them to activate more quickly, right? So that's one piece. The second is that when they do it with an understanding that there are phases that you're going to go through in a situation that is chaotic. And my guess is some of your other guests have probably talked about this. But in those phases, right, they often they begin with the rally phase, which is something crappy just happened. We just, again, sports analogy, right? Our point guard just dislocated his knee, and we are, we're in the middle of the championship drive. And man, how are we going to, what are, most teams sit and they're sitting feeling bad. The best teams are sitting there and trying to figure out, okay, that's that. Let's rally. Let's all figure out who's gonna. If each one of us steps up a little, then we're able to kind of make our way through the rally phase. But not very long after that, you start getting to that phase of, man, this is hard. And for a lot of teams going through what we're going through right now, they've finished the rally phase, which is when everybody goes, yeah, we're going to be just fine. Then they're starting to go, oh crap, right? This is hard. And then, ultimately you're going to end up in a phase that is when all the fractures of your organization, right? All the things that might be might be little challenges that have been out there for you in the past suddenly become big cracks. Little things become far more important. Or, things that were a 3 in the real world, right? The world that we used to live in, are suddenly a 7. And it's not always things that are professional. It's not that I just hate the way you part your hair, right? Though, sometimes in organizations, those things exist. This is like, I'm thinking, golly, you seem a little slower today than you've seemed in the past. I've asked you for something and I need it, and it's 3 hours later, and what's up with you? Like, and what you don't know is that they've got, a spouse that's just been laid off, right? And because you may not know these things, you enter this place where your needs and desires become more important than an understanding that all of us are in a position today none of us asked for. And so I call this phase that I think we're in right now, frankly, at least in our companies, we are, the need for grace phase, right? And that's what I'm talking to my employees about. This is when grace needs to be our theme word for this period, which means when I'm frustrated because Zach looks really bored right now with my answer, it may just be that Zach really needs to use the restroom, and his 6-year-old is in there and been in there for a long time. And, and sorry, I'm joking, but at the same time, I'm being serious. Like, there could be something happening in Zach's life if I haven't taken time to figure out Zach and, hey, do my check-ins and knowing what's going on. And I get a little frustrated with him. My frustration goes from 0 to 100 a lot faster than it would in a typical environment, because I'm not giving them the grace today that I might in a typical setting, because in a typical setting, I might know more about what's going on with them than I do right now. And so we are encouraging everybody, if you feel something, if you're thinking, gosh, what did he mean by that email? Man, if there's 2 ways you could read something, read it with grace right now, because that's what people need, and then ask questions and over communicate. So anyway, one of the things that you see in these great teams is they understand how to navigate those phases. They know they're coming. They've talked about them. They've prepared for them. But even if they haven't, they know what the phases are. And as leaders, they're talking about them. They are, and as a team, they are engaged around those phases. I hope all of that made sense for as long as it was.
I think it's awesome for any entrepreneur or business owner. I'm sure, Zach, I saw you scribbling, so you must have some cool follow-ups to that question, I'm sure.
Oh, his 6-year-old's just got his.
Yeah, well, luckily I don't have a 6-year-old just yet, unless I had a kid way back in the day. But no, I got a 2.5-year-old and a 6 months. So yes, my 2.5-year-old does take up the bathroom for a long period of time, which, just in case everybody wanted to know that. So you were hitting a couple key points there, and really the first point that you made was that with the canceled flight compared to the delayed flight, the canceled flight is decisiveness. Like, that decision is now gone, so now you can make another decision. So what we've been seeing right now, and I'm sure you have too, is that people are just stuck in limbo. So they're not doing anything at all.
But it's because they're still believing this is a canceled flight, right? So what I'm encouraging them, and what I'm telling them, is the best teams treat the flight as they're treating it as a delayed, right? Yeah. what I'm encouraging them to do is treat it as a canceled flight. I mean, stop imagining what it's going to be like when we get to be what we used to be. Because in most industries, you're probably not going to be what you used to be, right? Start imagining right now that the flight has been canceled. And so forget that option that existed, whatever days ago, that this could be a really short-term thing. Act today as if the flight was canceled.
Yeah, it's so funny too, because I actually said that to Chris. I said that our governors keep popping on like a delayed flight. Like they just tell you, oh, it's delayed 45 minutes. And then in 45 minutes, they're going to tell you it's delayed another 45 minutes. So yeah, we're in a completely new place. And then the other thing you brought up was just like understanding that life's going in phases and like these things are going to happen. So let's say I'm in the audience right now and I wasn't prepared for these types of phases. How is your team kind of going about it and now adjusting to these phases?
Well, first off, we are talking through the phases, right? We're talking about, like in that first couple of weeks, I talked to my team openly about what we were going to be like, right? I know that who we've collected here already, who work for us today, we're going to rally, right? That's what we do. That's who we are. That's what we do in every situation. We're going to rally, and that's great. And let's do that. But let's realize that the rally steam runs out. So while we're rallying, we also need to be thinking about what does pivot look like, right? Let's rally, on trying to close out what we already got. But how do we pivot too? Like, where do we start thinking about it? And this gets to, again, mindset, right? It starts to get to encouraging them to start thinking about it. It gets to responsibility as a leader, right? To be in a regular check-in environment, right? With all of my employees, I have a little rotation, and I schedule calls. Would love to keep them to 15 minutes. They don't always get there, and it's hard some days, right? When I feel like my tank's got zero in it, and it's the light is on because I'm freaking at wit's end over what's going on, to be the encourager of others. But I have to. That's what Napoleon said it, right? Leaders are dealers in hope. And so my job is to deal hope even when it's hard some days. Being connected, asking questions. I have a checklist that literally sits on a whiteboard. This is my home, right? But I brought whiteboards in from the office, and I bought a bunch more. And if I could flip this camera around, you'd see there's whiteboards all over the place. And one of them is my regular check-ins. And every 3 days, I'm trying to go through them and figure out, have I made contact with each one, not in a group setting or a big call, but in a one-on-one, and in which the questions aren't all business, right? They're about their wife, they're about their kid. It's about their daughter who, was looking forward to her senior year of high school. It's their senior graduation and all. It's asking questions that, I typically probably would ask in the workplace, but in what feels like a compressed environment, I don't want to ask. Like, I got a million things I'd really rather talk about, but I have to. So, how do you monitor and make sure you're doing those things?
Don, how about on the, I'm thinking as you're going through that, like helpful for anyone in any capacity, but how about the solopreneur? A lot of listeners right now, solopreneur, no one to bounce off and no one to rally with unless they're part of a mastermind. Like, any thoughts for them?
Well, yeah. The bottom line is you really are crazy if you're not finding some kind of mastermind. And By the way, you don't have to pay money for them. I mean, all these people who think you got to pay money to be part of the mastermind, heck, just go out there on the internet and, identify it through LinkedIn 30 people who kind of do what you do or do. Maybe they don't do exactly what you do, but what you're looking at is just some people who are, it's easy to find right now, easier than ever. And just send a list of 30 of them and say, hey, look, or 20 of them and say, look, I'm trying to get together a little group of 4, 5 who might be willing to take an hour a week and be just, let's all get raw together. Anybody else want to do that? Here's, I promise you, you'll find them. They're there. People want to do it. You might have to sort through some wackos to get the right
Yeah.
But I found you guys. I mean, come on, that's how desperate some people get. But the point is that there are. The other thing is too. We talk a lot in this window. We have from almost the beginning to our team about the importance of nutrition right now, right? And it's not just about like physically being nutritious and doing good things for yourself, but feeding yourself good things too. It's easy. I'm going to assume my wife doesn't listen to your podcast, so I'm good. But, and I love her dearly, right? She's like my best friend and most important person in my life. But, from the beginning, we've talked a lot about her propensity in moments like this to get caught up in the news cycle, right? And she'll turn it on in the morning and she won't turn it off. And she will find herself paralyzed, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not because she's not smart enough to know what's happening, right? It's just, it's how she's wired. Like me, I have an intentional window. I give myself 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the, end of the day, usually 6 o'clock. And I'll watch it with her for 15 minutes and I'll find out, everything I need to know.
Yep.
About what's going on. I'm not in the stock market business, so I don't need to watch the market all day long. And that would depress the crap out of me anyway. So I feed myself those 15 minutes. I know what's happening in the world enough that I could be conversant with other people. And then I put it there because if I spend too much time, if I have alerts on my computer all day long, I spend all my time in that downward spiral. Can't let that happen. So I literally have a clock, right? At the 15-minute mark, I get up and walk away. And I encourage her to do the same. She won't, but that's cool, right? Just how some people are wired. But I know how much more effective I am at dealing with what's going on right now than she is. And I'm not saying it's because she's not good. It's because that's human nature if you start going down that rabbit hole. And so there's an important lesson, right? Don't have it on all day long, right? I live down in Florida where we had horrific storms yesterday. And the idea that I got to ask our family to turn the Weather Channel on and watch, my region of the state be destroyed by bad weather, but it was preferable to than watching stuff about the virus. Was pretty sad. So anyway.
No.
Yeah, it's funny. You actually gave us some great thoughts there. Like delegate time, because it's important. We had that conversation with one of Chris's coaches, Jarek Robbins, Tony Robbins' son, and he said that during this time frame, it's about understanding that there's chaos, but also being really clear and intentional during it as well. So I love the fact that you're giving yourself 15 minutes or half an hour per day just to understand what's happening, because all you really need is the 5 bullet points anyways. And you did something that I did, which is I delegated out watching the news. So my wife or my mother-in-law will hit me on text message and tell me what happened, and that way I don't have to watch it.
Yeah.
So if you have if somebody's out there and they're in a similar situation to you, because I think this is extremely relevant right now, because there are husbands and wives and brothers and sisters that are thinking just like we are, right? It's, I don't need to involve myself in the news. There's enough information going on. And they have a spouse or a family member, someone lives in their house that's, that's, I don't want to say addicted to it, but is really, in it and a lot. Do you have any, words of wisdom, or other than the compartmentalization that you do in order to still be extremely successful during this time?
Well, I mean, if I had words of wisdom, I'd be a better husband, right? I can offer, my model, which is just I know that if I sat there and I didn't have a discipline, like a plan, right, for discipline, I would sit there and it would become 20 minutes tomorrow, 25 the next day, and 30 the day after that. I know that's what I would do, because that's just, you do get and you're scratching your head and you're pissed and all those things happen, right? So knowing that like her, I could get sucked in, I just set a number and the clock, right? And I just stop. That's cool. Got what I need. I'm good. If North Korea launches a nuclear weapon, please come tell me, right? But short of that, like, you're in your space, I'm in mine. If you want to have the TV on, cool. There's a TV in my space. I'm not going to have it on. All my news alerts are off, because I have things I'm trying to accomplish, and if I spend time allowing all those other things to be what feeds me, right, then I'm going to be miserable, and I can't do that.
Don, you've in talking to Steve, I know you've spoken like, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of times. Is there something, as we're going through this, especially during the chaos, that you're thinking, man, I wish they just asked me that, or any other nuggets that we're not asking you that the audience could glean from, knowing that they're all kind of wannabe real estate investors, or already investing right now?
Well, I think a big part of it is, to kind of begin. I think it is healthy to start asking yourself, how will the world be different in my space when this ends, right? Don't try to guess when it ends. Just say, what's happening in the world today that you think is going to take hold? I'll tell you one, right? To me, I see heck, my children, right? I pay all this crap load of money for private school, and they're sitting at home right now, for what feels like an hour and a half, and that's all they're really learning, right? For what is the day of that I'm paying for a private school, and I have to question, like, at the end of this year, if there's not an overall good discussion to be had with the school about, is this really what education's going to look like? I look at all these kids who I talk to, young people I talk to, who are complaining about how in debt they are when they leave college, and I'm sitting there wondering, gosh, right now, given how many people are being educated online, how many people in the near future might say, gosh, do I really need to go absorb, $300,000 in debt to walk away with what purports to be a college education? Online education is probably going to change, right? And if I'm Harvard and Yale, I'm scared as crap right now.
Yeah.
Because, Are people really going to believe that's the only place you can go get a high quality schooling? No, there's going to be other opportunities. What's going to change in your space? What's changed already in 45 days that you think might not go back the other way, even if everything were to go, even if the world would allow it to tomorrow? What's changed so far that is kind of, a good idea that's probably not going to change back once people have the opportunity to come? I mean, are people going to want to keep going back to big office buildings? Because at the end of the day, there could be a lot of folks who might look and say, you take that number out of my business, my P&L, right? You add that back into my P&L, what I pay for that building. Boy, I can do a lot of things. I can be far more creative. And if you're in the business of selling business buildings, is that an opportunity? Is that a weakness in the market that you should be thinking about? Is it, I would be looking at the things that you think are working right now for people by and large, and start imagining, if that doesn't change back in my space, how would what do I have to do to be ready to jump all over that?
Love it. Thoughts?
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I was actually going in that direction too, which is eventually things are gonna come out of the quote unquote chaos, right? And they're gonna move into some sort of normalcy. Would you, because I want people to be able to point to and go to your 16 characteristics of a great team, great leaders, after listening to this podcast and stuff. So do you feel as though those 16 characteristics are going to change now moving into this future?
No, because I think, again, habits of high performing teams will be the same, right? Number one, best teams are purpose centered, right? And that's still going to be the case. Now, you may not have the physical opportunity to appreciate the purpose, but it actually makes the articulation of your purpose even greater, right? Because now it's not just about how I feel in the presence of all my fellow employees. Sounds good, but some days you don't feel that, right? Now it's about, how do I feel about working for Chris, right? Does Chris inspire me enough? Do I want to be successful along with Chris enough that I want to continue to stay here no matter what happens, right? It's not just about what we sell or what we do, both of which are important. Now it's about how we lead, and are we, I think actually each one of these elements, a mentoring environment. What will mentoring look like differently when now, where today we could say we have a mentoring culture in our organization because, every other week I can take you to lunch and I can offer up nuggets of wisdom. Well, maybe I can't take you to lunch. Maybe I could, but we'd have to meet somewhere halfway in between. One of the elements is about having a learning culture, right? Learning is going to be different. Now, what if your day doesn't include 60 minutes of a commute, right, back and forth to the office? What could we encourage in the way of growth from other people in that 60 minutes? And how could they maybe? I mean, I actually think the elements of high performance don't change. They haven't for many, many years. I just think you might have to see them slightly, how they would execute into your team slightly different.
Well, that's why they don't change, because they don't change, because they thrive in their work.
Correct. And then the key is your key is then looking at the element maybe through a new lens.
Love it.
I say it sounds like it's actually being heightened, but just in either a slightly different direction. So if you're right about the virtual, and a lot of people, kind of not being close proximity, then yeah, I mean, all of those characteristics have to be heightened because now they have to cross long distances. And we have to be able to portray those via online, which means that they can be extremely strong.
Right.
Don, I guess my wrap-up question, then I'd love you to share how these guys can get a hold of you if you want to. It would be, what's the I know you probably
I don't want anyone to ever.
I knew you were going to say that.
No, I make money by sitting here quietly and hoping no one calls. So.
Good deal. What is the one, you probably have 10 amazing habits, but what's the one habit you do every day to make you the best at what you do? Like what if you had a single one out?
So I have a high curiosity quotient, right? It's funny, there was IQ over the years, where everybody said you had to have high IQ, and there was a high EQ, right? You had to be able to kind of, I have long valued a CQ, right? Like when I'm looking at people, when I'm trying to talk to people, I try to figure out how curious are they, because that to me is a huge issue. So probably the thing that I think is probably most important for me is that I am constantly curious about things. If I've heard that this is a company, or if I've just seen that this is somebody who's doing really, really well in this period, heck, I reach out. Like, I'm not afraid to reach out. I'm not afraid to try to figure out how I can learn what it is that they're doing, which allows me to then be, I'm essentially a dealer, right, of hope. I mean, just to use Napoleon's line, because I'm always out there trying to learn what others are doing well so that I can then deal it to other people. I'm not the genius, right? You take 3 minutes with me, you know that. What I am is I have a high curiosity, and then by asking great questions, it allows me to be someone who can be of value to a large group of people. And so that's the one thing I work on all the time, is making sure that I'm constantly stoking the fire that is my curiosity.
I love it. I don't have the nuggets here have been phenomenal. Zach, any last minute thoughts? And then Don, if you don't want to sit for the next 3 hours, you can tell these guys how to get a hold of you.
Awesome. Zach, you got anything?
I was just going to say, I've never heard somebody say that their number one habit is curiosity. And I've listened to a ton of podcasts and read a ton of books, and that's the first time I've ever heard that. So I love it because I am extremely curious as well. So I'm glad that we got that in common there. Yeah, I'd love for the audience to be able to get a hold of you, as this has been a lot of fun. I absolutely love your personality. I can see why Steve hangs out with you, because you cracked me up the entire time and gave me great nuggets. So very entertaining and very informal.
So yeah, thank you very much. I enjoy being in the dealer role, right? So yeah, a lot of content is available on my website, donyaeger.com, DonYaeger.com. But knowing that a lot of people spell it wrong, I own the other website as well, so it's good spelled the other way, 2 other ways, so that I make sure that I can capture people even if they can't spell. That's good. And then and on there is everything from I love quotes. I capture quotes all the time when I read, right? And I'm like, if somebody says something just so well, I'm thinking, and because I'm a journalist, I don't steal them, right? Which is what too many people in other professions do. I capture them, and then every morning I actually share a quote. I've got about 50,000 people a day who get a quote from me every morning at 8 a.m. Eastern. And it just kind of gives them a little nugget to start their day thinking a little bit. Everything all the way through, keynote opportunities, of which there are a few right now, but online learning and all kinds of ways that we try to take all, as I said, I am no genius, but I am a student who takes enough away from others that I hope it allows me to teach. And so then serving that bridge is my role.
I love it. I love it. And we appreciate it so much, Don. We could probably go 3 hours here with just 2 or 3 more key questions. So we appreciate it very, very much. DonYaeger.com, and we'll put it in the show notes as well. And we encourage everybody to get your butt over to his site and just get some more nuggets that you gleaned from today. Thanks again, buddy.
Super. Thank you all.